Seeing a new release for the first time since January, there's no other feeling like it. For the ones who here we nations master for the sealer winnings. Hey guys, it's me, and I'm here today to discuss Chris Nolan's new film, Tenet, starring John David Washington, Robert Pattinson, Kenneth Branagh, and amongst many other people. It tells a story of the protagonist, played by John David Washington, who's given a mission with one word, Tenet, in order to stop something really horrible from happening to the entire world. This is also written and directed by Christopher Nolan, and I would actually argue, right off the bat, that this is probably his most ambitious film to this day, even more than Inception, or The Prestige, or Dunkirk even. You guys all know that this movie kept getting pushed back multiple times because of the COVID-19 pandemic, and a lot of people were hoping that this movie would be released digitally instead of theatrically, or maybe both. Well, knowing Chris Nolan, he is a lover of cinema. There is no way that he would allow that to happen, especially with someone of his status in Hollywood. And if you've been following me on my Facebook page or social media outlets, Tenet is a movie that belongs on the big screen. This movie needs to be seen in a dark room on a big screen, and I'm so glad that Hollywood decided to go along with that, and we'll see what happens with box office returns, although it does seem a bit promising right now worldwide. Especially considering the state of the world right now, this movie is definitely a breath of fresh air in terms of all the negativity that we've been getting, at least from me, in regards to the pandemic and everything that's been happening. And while it's not necessarily a great movie and not Nolan's best movie, this is definitely Chris Nolan once again doing what he does best. I know I'm going to repeat a lot of what's been said by critics and other YouTube movie reviewers, but I saw the movie yesterday with a friend of mine. After having some time to process it over the last day, I really like Tenet. Now, I know that not a lot of people are going to feel the same way, and that's totally fine because, unfortunately, as we'll get to later on, at first, it's a lot to get through, and it's very complex, even more so than Inception. And I remember, Inception was really hard for me to follow at first, but after a while, it started to soak in. That's the thing with Chris Nolan. He's one of those filmmakers that loves to leave these little details in the film that most people are not going to catch on the first time around. And maybe as you start to watch it more over time, you'll start to pick up on those things. Just like The Prestige, are you watching closely? And it also continues his obsession or interest in time and different types of realities. Sometimes Nolan has found different ways of telling stories with non-linear narratives like in Dunkirk, or flashing back to certain points in a character's life like in Batman Begins or in The Dark Knight Rises. But even if he does tell a linear story, he does it in a way that's very effective or very unique and refreshing. Now, this movie's been out for about a week, so I'll try not to go too deep into spoilers, but just so you know, I'm going to be going into certain details about the plot. So if you haven't seen this yet, don't watch this video. Or if you don't really care about spoilers, hey, what's mine is yours. A huge bulk of this movie, I would say, and I'm sure other people have said this, it feels like a James Bond movie or a spy espionage thriller because the protagonist, played by John David Washington, is given a task to stop a world-ending threat from happening using the formula of inversion that was created in the future but has now found its way into the past, which is the current present storyline, where if you formulate something a certain way, like an object or a person, it's able to move in reverse, like if you're watching a video in reverse. And seeing that in the trailers, in particular when you see the one scene where John David Washington gets ambushed by one SWAT guy, it was really trippy and just really insane and just really fascinating and awe-inspiring to watch. And somehow Chris Nolan found the right way of making it accessible for the audience, and not in a way where it's just like talking over you or talking down to you. A lot of this movie does have a lot of expository dialogue, but it's for a reason, and it's meant to help the audience understand what's going on. But it's not just the one character fighting the protagonist in reverse. It's also the highway chase that we saw in the trailers, where the car flips backwards and then drives backwards, or a building that explodes while also at the same time reassembling itself while the camera tilts upward, or one particular group of soldiers or special operations operatives goes forward into the bunker, or the other version comes out in reverse out of the bunker. How Nolan managed to do that, I have no idea, because I stayed away from as much of the marketing as I could, and from what I understand, the filmmakers have been very secretive about the movie's plot, which is really always refreshing to see. And if a lot of people are wondering, did the trailers really ruin anything? No, you don't have to worry, because Nolan, like some filmmakers out there or certain people like Marvel or J.J. Abrams, they do a pretty good job of keeping secrets from the audience, at least until you see the movie. And Nolan continues to show how much of an in-camera director he is, like a plane crashing into a hangar or another building, and the wreckages of cars looking like real auto accidents, and stunt guys actually doing their own stunts, or John David Washington or Robert Pattinson's character Neil doing their own stunts while they go off of a building. Now, I personally don't really care if somebody uses green screen or actual real sets, because they both have their pros and cons for me at least. If a filmmaker can make it look convincing enough or good enough for me to believe it, then I don't really care which way they go. Very few CGI shots are used, if at all, which is something that Nolan is also famous for. And if he does use CGI, it's very sparingly done. And some of the shots, I can't really tell if they are CGI, but the fact that that's the case, that's a really good sign. Not quite as inventive as some of the sequences in Inception, but those images are still in my brain, and only Nolan can make something that inventive. There's really no other filmmaker like Christopher Nolan working right now. And I'm really, really happy to see that someone who is making smart entertainment while also not making it inaccessible for a mainstream audience. That being said, the first 40 minutes of this movie are a lot to digest. And I'll admit, when I was watching it, I sat there thinking, where is this going? This doesn't feel right. But then after a while, about maybe halfway through its second act, when it's all revealed of how the inversion works and how Kenneth Branagh's character was able to use it, through expository dialogue from Aaron Taylor Johnson, who I did not know was in this movie, it all started to click with me. And then, at one point, when they actually go to the hangar again where the plane crashed, and it turns out that was John David Washington's character, the protagonist, and Neil, Robert Pattinson's character, in those SWAT uniforms fighting their other selves, that was just incredible, and my mind was ripped. As it was playing out, I went, wait a second, what? Oh.
I like that.
If nothing else with Tenet, this movie is an incredible spectacle, and Christopher Nolan has never disappointed, as far as I can tell at least. I still have yet to see Memento and Insomnia, and this is just my opinion. He has yet to make a bad movie. That being said, the characters, as a lot of people have pointed out, aren't really that interesting. The actors do a really great job with what they're given. John David Washington has shown once again that he's very capable of being a lead actor. After seeing him in BlacKkKlansman, I'm really curious to see what this guy's going to do going forward. And seeing Robert Pattinson as the secondary lead character, it was actually quite cathartic, because this is a guy who has been the butt of almost every joke in regards to the Twilight saga, which I think most of us could agree, except for the Twilight fans. Those movies were laughably awful. This is like his first mainstream role for main audiences since Twilight, and I gotta say, I'm really happy to see that he's moved on from that since then, and willing to bet that he's gonna do something similar with his role as the Batman. Then you have the antagonist, played by Kenneth Branagh. Performance-wise, you're either gonna roll with it or you're gonna hate it. And there were a couple times where it just was a little too much, but he just chewed up the scenery every single time. And hey, if he wanted to do that, by all means, go for it. You also get Michael Caine, but for one scene. And I guess it's like a Tim Burton, Johnny Depp type of relationship that he has with Chris Nolan. He's almost become a staple actor to be in Chris Nolan's movies, but still, it was cool to see him in there nonetheless. But really, what it comes down to, character-wise, it's Elizabeth Debicki's character, who plays the wife of the Russian arms dealer. She's really the heart and soul of this movie. How she wanted to have a normal, happy life with this guy, but then he threatened her to take away her son if she wanted to continue to be married to him. She refused, and now he basically has her under his thumb. And the protagonist tries to help her get out of this situation using the inversion time travel stuff, especially in the climax of the movie. And they also show him falling off of the boat, which you suspect, but her past self might have thought that he was cheating on her with somebody else. Character-wise, Elizabeth Debicki is really the one that holds the movie together. And this is no surprise coming from me. When it comes to the sound design and ambience and all that stuff, there were quite a few times where I literally could not hear what the people in the movie were saying. Like, I had to lean in a couple times to try to hear them, and I wish they gave us the option of subtitles, because the noise was so loud, and the musical score was loud too, that I literally could not hear what everybody was saying. That happens quite often throughout the movie. Even though I got most of what was happening, still, whoever Nolan hired to do the sound mixing or whatever, all I ask is that, could you please tone it down a little bit, please? As far as the musical score, it's not so much melodical as much as it is sound design. Hans Zimmer did not do the score this time. He was doing a musical score for the movie Dune that's coming up soon, but it's composed by Ludwig Göransson. That was my terrible attempt of a German accent. He did the music for Creed, Black Panther, and the music for The Mandalorian. I honestly couldn't really tell if it was him or Hans Zimmer, and that's actually quite a good sign. And it has a really good inverted quality to it, which fits with the overall theme of the movie. But then we finally get to the climax of the movie after everything's managed to stop. Neil reveals that he has been under the protagonist's wing for a long time and that the protagonist recruited him earlier on in his career and sent him back in time to stop all this stuff from happening that would lead to probably a nuclear holocaust. And everything starts to come together when you realize that he was keeping certain things from him earlier on, because if he told him, then he would have reacted differently and everything would have been thrown off. That's when I think everything started to click for me, but still, it was a lot to take in. And I think for some people, they're not gonna like that, and I totally understand that. This is not a movie that's for everybody, but if you're someone who's a real big film buff and just loves going to the movies or a big Chris Nolan fan, you'll probably have a really good time with it. I don't know if that really means anything, but that's about all I can promise you. And I think this is a good start to helping movie theaters coming back after the pandemic, because there were some people in my theater, not a whole big theater, there were some distancing measures that they took. We had to wear face coverings and all that stuff. This has given me a lot of hope, and especially seeing the box office numbers that are coming in, maybe not great at the moment, but it does give me hope that movie theaters are going to make it out okay, and Tenet could be the first step back in the right direction. So Chris Nolan, thank you so much for giving us a lot of relief after this really hard year. Tenet, as I said, is his most ambitious film to this day, and I can easily see people going either way on it. Whether or not people end up liking it in the long run is going to take multiple viewings for them to appreciate it, but if you're a fan of Chris Nolan and you love going to the movies, this is the good place to start. So those are my thoughts on Chris Nolan's Tenet. What are your guys' thoughts on the movie? Do you love it, like it, think it's alright, or do you hate it? Whatever the case is, comment below and tell me your thoughts, and I'll see you all very soon.